Well, hello there. I'm Jen Jackson, mother of 11 beautiful children. While my life is filled with wonder and adventure, it can sometimes be laced with confusion and what feels like chaos. Can you relate? My goal is to point out that while motherhood can have its moments of confusion and difficulties, it can also be beautiful and marvelous. As a mother, you have a superpower that cannot be duplicated. You are the true Captain Marvel. Let's talk about it. Welcome to episode 13 of Marvelous Motherhood with Mama Jen. And today I'll be talking about tapping into the gift of creativity. As mothers, we are constantly thinking and planning and analyzing when it comes to our children and our lives. But the Lord has given us a brain that has a right and a left side, a creative side and an analytical side, a mathematical and science side and an artistic side. And we tap into our analytical side and calculative side all the time when it comes to our children. We're planning their meals, we're planning their clothes, we're paying attention to see what they need and trying to meet that need. We're calculating what they need. We're adding things up. We're planning and we're thinking all the time. We're interacting with our spouses and the father of our children and thinking about how those interactions affect our children. And oftentimes the creative sides that we once enjoyed get pushed to the side and not prioritized. But the Lord has given us the gift of creativity for a reason. And I want you as a mom not to forget to take time for those things that you love to do, to unwind, especially those creative things. What is it that you used to like to do that you don't do so much anymore? Were you a dancer, a singer? Did you write poetry or short stories? Did you sculpt or mold things? Did you paint? Whatever it was, tap back into it again if you've been leaving it by the wayside. And try to think of ways that you can share it with your children. If you like to write poetry, read them some of the poems that you wrote once or one that you wrote recently. And allow them the opportunity to give you a response poem or to come up with their own. If you love to draw, consider gathering lots of pieces of paper and pencils, color pencils, etc. And just sit around the table. Play some soft music in the background and just freely draw with your children for an afternoon or a morning or an evening. Or perhaps you all can think about your favorite book or favorite movie or favorite story that you've heard, or make up a story on the fly. And then you all can just draw scenes and pictures that relate to that story, your favorite parts of the story in picture form. Or perhaps if you like to paint, gather some papers and go outdoors to the front or backyard and paint your little hearts away. And if you do it outdoors, you'll be less likely to be annoyed with the mess or worried about the mess that could be made. Enjoy yourselves freely. Perhaps if your goal or your favorite thing to do artistically was to dance or sing, consider inviting your children to do it with you. But let your children see that being artistic and enjoying your hobbies is also an important way to live, an important part of living. We all know as adults that being creative is a great outlet to help relieve stress and to help us with our mental health. So let's not to forget to emphasize that with our children as well. We tell our children to get a good education. We tell them to eat healthy. We tell them to go outside and play and exercise and not play video games or watch TV too long. But let's remind them to also think about the things they love to do creatively and encourage that in them. Those creative juices are good for our kids. Those creative outlets help to build them up and build up their confidence as well. It helps them to center. So let's encourage that in our children. In the spirit of encouraging our creativity, I'll share mine. As a young adult and a teenager, I wrote lots and lots and lots of poems. I also wrote them in the beginning of my marriage. I wrote poems about my new husband. And when I had my first baby, I wrote a few poems about my first baby, him as a little baby and him as a toddler and the way that he acted and all the things that I enjoyed about being a new mom. But little by little, I wrote less and less and less until I wasn't focused on writing my poetry anymore. When I realized that I was doing that, I did get back to writing poetry again, and I even took time to share some of my poems, especially the ones I wrote about my children, with them. And I allowed them, because I homeschool, to take a moment to write poetry as well as part of their writing assignments, but also just for fun. To pick a certain topic and just let them have at it. So I'm going to give an example of one of the poems that I wrote in my young adult years that I was able to share with my children. And I enjoy being able to share outlets like that with them. Now, there's another outlet that I like to use that I do for fun is dancing. I dance around the house all the time, especially when I'm cooking. And I turn the music up loud and I dance, and usually the toddlers always join in. Usually the ones, once they reach about 7, 8 years old, they start to shy away from dancing. You know how it is. As you get older, you get a little more self-conscious. But they get to see that mom is an adult and she still dances freely. It may not always look pretty and graceful, but mom is having fun. And so if you like to dance, do those things in front of your children as well. Show them that mom can also have fun. It's important for children to see their moms laughing and enjoying themselves. So please laugh, enjoy yourself, be creative, do what you enjoy, and invite your children into your world. And also pay attention to what your children love to do creatively. And ask them for permission to sit beside them and do it with them. I have a daughter who loves to draw. And it's nice to sit down with her on the sofa and just draw beside her. I have a son who's great at arts and engineering. And I encourage him every time he builds things. And if I'm having a hard time with something, I call him over, and sometimes I'm trying to fix something and it just feels impossible to me. And I call this son over and say, hey, why don't you give it a try? And in my mind, I have no idea how he's going to solve this problem, but somehow he always does. And I can say to him, I can always count on you to solve these problems. You're so good at building things and making things. So here's a little poem that I wrote. If I could. I wrote this poem about one of the most important people in my life, which is the Lord God Almighty. Lord, if I could sing on high, as high-pitched as the birds, or vibrato as sweetly as zebras, or if I could hum as deeply as whales, or leap as fast as the cheetahs, if I could dance with the grace of the flowers, if my feet were as swift as gazelles, or if I could move in a soft, slow motion with the patience and consistency of snails, and if I could shout as loud as the ocean, or whisper as soft as the breeze, or just stand still and silent before you with my arms stretched as high as the trees. Lord, if I could smile as bright as the sun, or comfort as gently as the moon, if I were as peaceful as the lakes you've created, or as giving as the bluest lagoon, Lord, if I could speak all the tongues of the world and comprehend all intelligent conversation, or had imagination and hands work together to produce half as good as your creation. My God, I must admit, if I could do all that, all wrapped up into my little frame, I still couldn't do enough to give you praise and the honor that's due to your name. But you've given me a voice that's uniquely soft and a gift to write poetry. You've given me the body and the rhythm to dance and a sound mentality. So with the gifts that you've given me, including of teaching and of those that I've mentioned above, I'll praise and honor you with all of my being for all of your unfailing love. And that's the end of that poem. I wrote lots and lots of poems that regard to my faith, many poems about my family, my children, my husband, my marriage. I wrote many poems about love in its different forms. And I wrote many poems just about life. And one day I realized I have so many poems here, and I share a few with my children and maybe a few with my husband. But I decided I want to share them with anyone who's interested, anyone who likes poetry, or anyone who just wants to see my life through my eyes written in poetic form. And I've gathered them into a book that I've called Time and Tapestry, Poems Interwoven with the Life I've Been Living. So if you're interested in reading more of those poems and seeing more of what I had to write about faith and family and love and life, feel free to go on Amazon and purchase the book, Time and Tapestry by Jennifer Jackson. In the meantime, take the time to explore what you're creative in doing. Do it for fun and share it with your kids. Invite them into your creative world and insert yourself into theirs. Make it an awesome bonding moment for all of you. Express yourself. Write stories, write poetry, paint, draw, keep a journal, dance, sing. There's so many things, and I know you thought of something right away when I brought up this topic. Start today. Give yourself the time and the grace to do those things. What I've learned is that expressing yourself is therapeutic, and it sometimes gives you something that can bond you with your children. And it allows you to teach them something new if it's a creative outlet that they've never tried before. It allows you both to enjoy and explore something together, you and your children. It can be a family hobby even. And you can show them other ways that that artistic outlet can be displayed. For example, if you like to draw and paint, you can take trips to art museums with your children. If you like to write poetry, you can introduce them to other poets from around the world. European poets, African poets, South American poets. They all have different styles and they all have different content when it comes to their poetry. If you love music and singing and dancing, you can take them to concerts of music and ballet and musicals that combine them both. And of course, as a mother, before you take your children to any outlet, whether it's an art museum or a concert or a dancing show or books of poetry from other cultures, you want to make sure you screen them ahead of time to make sure that those artistic outlets are not compromising or undermining your family values. Because remember, teaching our children God's word and standards still comes first, even when it comes to expressing ourselves creatively. And motherhood is marvelous because we always have someone to share our interests with. We always have someone to disciple as they pursue their own interests. It's nice to be able to pour into someone else, and motherhood is the most organic way to do that. So take the time to enjoy the creative gifts that the Lord has given you. Enjoy the way that others express them, and invite your children to enjoy them with you. So what do you think, my fellow sister in motherhood? Leave a comment or send me an email, which is listed in the description. Also, please don't forget to check out my book, Time and Tapestry, on Amazon by Jennifer Jackson, a collection of my poems written throughout my lifetime. And have a marvelous day, Mama. You've got this.